Hello. So you can see here the next game I'm going to be talking about is Fallout. This is based on a video game, which I never got into this video game, so I don't know, if how true it is to that video game. No reference there at all. I got this in 2018. I played it once at that time, and then I hadn't played it again until just this week, because got it out again to play it because it's actually going to be played at a gaming group I've got coming up first weekend of March. So that'll be the first time I've played it with more than just myself. But anyway, let me go ahead and talk about how to set up and play. Alright, first thing you'll do is choose one of the scenarios. The rules say for your first scenario you should start with the Commonwealth, so that's the one I'm going to start with. Next you'll flip over the scenario and build the map. As shown here, you'll shuffle up the map tiles with these icons and the map tiles with these icons and build accordingly, and then you'll use the double-sided map tiles to find the ones indicated here, so you put them in the right space. So let me get the map built. Alright, got the map built according to the back of the scenario, and just one thing, you want to make sure that the white arrows all point the same direction when you build your map. And you make piles of your special tokens, your caps, your enemies. You shuffle these up and put them in stacks in random order. You got your trait tokens. Just put them all in supply somewhere near the board. You create your encounter decks by taking the encounter cards that have the stars on them and separate them into the two decks that have the different backs, and then you'll shuffle those up, and those will be your two starting encounter decks. And you'll take your remaining encounter cards and quest cards, put them in numerical order. I got mine in two different stacks here because it makes too big of a stack, but put them in numerical order and then just set them aside, and that will be your card library. Next, you'll take your agenda deck, remove any cards that have a number of players that are not going to be... I'm playing a 3-player game, so I remove all the number 4 cards. If you were playing a 2-player game, you'd remove any 3 or 4. So anyway, remove all the cards with a number for the number of players that won't be playing, then shuffle up the rest of your deck and set it aside. Shuffle your loot cards and put them in an area where everybody can reach. Shuffle up your asset cards. You don't have to shuffle your unique asset cards or your perk cards, but just put them in decks near where everybody can reach. Alright, next you'll create your shop by dealing 4 cards face up next to the asset deck. Alright, next you'll randomly determine a first player, starting with that player. First, whoever you determine is going to be the first player, you move the agenda deck to their right side. Then the first player chooses a character they want to play, taking the character miniature, the character card, and the special token that goes with that character. And you can tell that token because on the back it has a little figure that matches their character card. Then that player will place their start their character on the starting map tile, on a space on the starting map tile, and then go in clockwise order. The other players will choose their character and take their figure and character card and special token. Alright, since I'm setting up for a 3-player game, I've got the Ghoul, which I showed you. I've got the Super Mutant character card and figure placed on the board, and then we have the Vault Dweller, and he is also placed on a space on the starting tile. Now, just to mention, these figures don't come painted. I did a mediocre paint job on them myself, but to me that's better than playing with just gray plastic. So anyway, I just wanted to mention the figures do not come painted, at least back when I got this version in 2018. Each player will then take a player board. They'll put the green peg in the leftmost slot, the right peg in the rightmost slot, and the gray peg in the leftmost slot of the XP. Then they take their starting character special token and put it in the appropriate space on their board, so P goes in P. Then they will draw one more special token and place that also on their player board. Now, if you drew the same token that you already have from your starting token, then you just return it and draw another one until you get one that isn't one that you started with. So each player will do that. Then each player will draw one agenda card and keep it secret from the other players by sliding it in that side of their player board. So let me do that for the other players. Then you resolve any starting effects, starting with the back of the scenario sheet. So it says stage 14. So you'll go to your card library and find card number 14 and just put it in the play area where all players can read it. Alright, so I've got card 14. All the players would want to read the text there and the options that you have here. Then it also says to place a shield token on Diamond City. So you get one of your shield tokens, and Diamond City is right here, so I'll put one there. Then it doesn't mention this in the learn to play of the rules, but some characters have starting effects too that you'll want to do. So like during setup, become vilified, that's a trait. The vilified trait for the ghoul is this one, and you just put that in this one of the trait slots. And then it says place this card in your play area. It does not count against your inventory. Your HP maximum is 12, so you have to move his maximum HP down to the 12. And then it just has another effect. When you would suffer, that symbol means rads or radiation. Recover that amount of HP instead. For the super mutant, it says during setup become a super mutant, so you take the super mutant trait token and push that in his trait area. Then just put this card in your play area, and then he has a special effect for each rad you suffer. You also gain 1 XP. And the Vault Dweller, when you flip his card over, it's an apparel item, which is kind of like an armor, helps absorb damage. So you put that in his apparel slot. And it says you may equip 1 additional apparel. Normally you can only have 1 apparel item, but with this starting apparel for the Vault Dweller, he gets to have 1 additional apparel also. Next, you look at your map and any face-up tiles that have an enemy icon like this one or like this one. You find a matching token, so the matching token here, you draw 1 token and place it face up in that play area, and that's an enemy. So this is a Protectron Medic, and then we need one with this symbol. So you draw from this pile and flip it over and put it face up here, and that's a Super Mutant Brute. And those are the only icons in this scenario that start face up, so we're finished with that step. Finally, take the star and shield power tokens and place them on the topmost space of the scenario sheet. And place your VATS dice somewhere near where everybody can. I just leave them in this little dice tray I'm using. I think that's it. It didn't really mention, but you have some quest tokens you'll want to put nearby, and of course your star and shield tokens that you'll want to place nearby. And that's it. We're set up. and ready to go over how to play. Alright, so how do you play? Well, the game is played over a series of rounds. During each round, each of the players, starting with the first player, will get to take their turn, which is composed of 2 actions. Then in clockwise order, the other players will take their turns. After the last player has done their turn, there'll be an enemy activation phase, and then you start the round over. And the game just continues in that way until one player has reached enough influence to win the game. The number of influence required depends on the number of players. In a 3-player game that I'm playing, takes 9 influence to win the game. You get influence from your agenda cards. They're each worth 1 influence. That's the thumbs up. And then each agenda card can give you additional influence, depending on if you meet these additional conditions. And they can be different on different agenda cards. But we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about what a player can do on his turn. So on a turn you get 2 actions. So one action you can do is explore. And when you explore, if your character is on a space that's adjacent to an unrevealed map tile, you can use an explore action to flip the map tile up that you're adjacent to. Again, make sure the arrow goes in the same direction as any of the other arrows on the map, so up in this case. And if there's any enemy icons on it like there is here, then you take one of those enemies and place it face up on that map tile. Alright, the next type of action you can do is a move action. If you take a move action, you get 2 movement points, so you could move 1, 2. If you move into a red space like this, that takes 2 movement points to move in there, so that would take both movement points from a move action to move in there. If you move into a green section, that's a irradiated section, and you have to suffer 1 rad. When you move into an irradiated section, you would move your green marker up 1 space on the track here to show that you've taken 1 rad. You do that for each green space that you move into. The ghoul is a little different. Remember, he has the power that when you would suffer a rad, you recover that amount of HP instead. So he would not move his rad up. He would actually get to recover HP if he had lost some. His max is 12, so in this case he wouldn't gain any. But the other players, they would actually have to gain rads if they moved into a green space. When you take a move action and you get 2 movement points, you can interrupt that to take another action. So you could take a move action, move 1 point, then take your second action to explore and reveal a tile, and then complete your move action from your first move by moving 1 more additional point, or 1 more additional space. And finally, if you're going to take 2 move actions in a row, spend both your actions for move actions, you can combine them. So, you could move take 1 move action, move 1 of the spaces there, then spend your second and third movement point there, and finally your 4th movement point there. So you could combine both your actions into 1 move action if you're going to take 2 move actions on your turn. Alright, that covers move action. Alright, another action you can do is some of these cards that you have staged will have this icon, and that is a quest icon. So if you're in this location, for instance, for this card, if you're in this location, you can do a quest action to attempt this quest right here. And this particular one, the only thing requirement is just to be in Diamond City. And if you are, then you complete it and you do everything it states down here. Now, but that is an action. You have to take a quest. So you would have had to move to Diamond City, and then for your second action, or if you were already in Diamond City for your first action, you could take a quest action to complete this. Now, some will have tests or other things that are required. This one is just be in Diamond City. Now, this up here is not a quest. It just, if you kill any of the creatures with that icon, which is, this one, and again, you can see that on the front there. If you kill any of those, then you've completed this, and you get the rewards down here. And just to talk about what the different icons on the monsters are, these are humans, critters, robots, super mutants, and monsters. So anyway, all right, I just want to point that out. So again, another action you can take is a quest action. If one of the cards, they'll end up, as the game goes on, more cards will end up being staged out here, and some will have quest icons that again take a quest action to fulfill, and some will just say, something like this, like kill any human enemy, and then you get that. So why don't we talk about what these different rewards are or maybe not rewards, but results. So the first one here would be to move the shield faction, which actually we can look at the factions here on this scenario. The stars are the railroad faction, an underground group that believes Institute synths are fully sapient beings, blah, blah, blah. And the shield represents the Institute, a mysterious scientific organization that created robots known as synths. So anyway, if you see that symbol, that means move the shield up one on their power track. If you did this quest here at Diamond City, you would actually move the railroad or the star up one on the power tracks. This symbol here means loot times 2, so you would get to draw 2 loot cards. And those are items or weapons or something like that. And we'll talk about items and that kind of thing here shortly. Stage 15 and 134 means you would draw card number 15 and card number 134 and put them here in the play area. So again, that's how other cards are placed out in the play area. And then trash means this card would then go out of play. It would be out of the game. So if somebody completes this before this quest is completed, then the card is just trashed. Or if somebody completes this quest, which let's look at the results for that. Again, get to draw 2 loot cards, stage cards 16 and 67, add 17. When it says to add a card, you would get card 17 out of the deck. Let's look at that. You would get card 17. You don't read it. You look at the back of it, and you'll see which encounter deck it matches. It matches this one. Then you draw a number of cards equal to the number of players. So in my case, I've got a 3-player game set up. You would draw 3 cards. Then you shuffle those up and put them on top of that encounter deck. So it ends up putting that card 17 into the encounter deck somewhere in the top, in this case somewhere in the top 4 cards. So when you draw an encounter from that encounter deck, you may or may not get that card. So that's how new cards are added to the encounter deck. So that's the difference between staging a card. When it says stage a card, you get it and put it face up in the play area where all the players can immediately read it and look at which option they might want to try to do. When it says add a card, then you draw it and add it to the appropriate encounter deck, depending on what the back of it is, as we just discussed. And then finally, if somebody completed this, then you would trash, and so the card just goes out of the game So that's quest action. Some other possible results that are not on this card is either to gain an amount of XP or experience, maybe to shop. We haven't talked about that, but we're going to shortly when we talk about encounters. It might say gain a number of caps, which again, that's the currency. Might tell you to gain a unique asset, which is one of these cards, in which case you would just look through the deck and find that card. There might be something saying to draw an influence card or an asset card. Just various other results that aren't here, but I think we've covered most of them. Alright, another possible action you can have is an encounter action. So if you're in a space that has this symbol, that's a wasteland encounter. If you are in a space that has this symbol, you can do a settlement encounter. So again, this symbol you can do a wasteland encounter, this one a settlement encounter. And all that is telling you which deck you're going to draw from. So if you moved into this space maybe with one action, and then for your second action you say you're going to do an encounter. So since you're in this space, and the number there is the level of the encounter, which we'll see how that comes into play. But if you moved in here, say you're going to take an encounter action, so since you're in a wasteland encounter space, the player to your right would draw the top card from the encounter deck. Then they would read the top text there, and they would read to you your options, but only the bolt. They don't read to you what the possible result is. They read to you what the possible options are. You know, rush in and kill the critters, or send them after someone else. Then you would choose. Oh, and here's another one down here. Grab something and run. So they read the top flavor text, tell you the options. Then you choose one option, and then you may have to do a test or something like that. Let's look at what we got here. So this particular one, if you choose number 1, then you would have to draw and fight a critter. And then if you succeed at that, you would get a loot times the encounter level. Now remember, in this space it was level 2. So you would get to draw 2 loot cards. You'd add card number 4 from the card library into one of the encounter decks. Depending on what the back is, as we showed earlier, you'd take that card, depending on which deck, add a number of cards equal to the number of players, shuffle them up and put them on the top of the deck, and then you'd become idolized. That's a trait. You would take, I believe it's this one, I believe is the idolized, and you'd put that trait on your board. And then this card would get trashed. So anyway, basically, you know, when you do an encounter action, you draw a card matching the wasteland or settlement deck, and the player to your right actually draws it, reads the text, reads you the options, then you do what it says, and you either succeed or fail. Now a lot of them, let's look at another one. I want to find one that has a test. Now this one, usually in settlement encounters, you get an option to shop, and we'll talk like this one here, shop. And when it has that icon, that means the level. So you'd get to shop 3. So in other words, you get to buy or sell up to 3 items. So you could sell 1 item and buy 2, or just buy 3 items, or sell 2 items and buy 1. Anyway, you could do 3 shop actions. Again, when it just has that icon, it means whatever the level. For instance, if you did it here, that's level 3. I was trying to find one that showed a test. Let me look for one of those. Alright, here's an encounter card that one of the options is reprogram the robot, and this means it's a test. You have to succeed at getting 4 successes. And the IL means if you have the letters I and L in your special, for each one of those you have gives you an option to reroll. So we'll just give an example. If this player was going to attempt this test, he would take the 3 VATS dice, roll them. He's got to get a 4. Now each one of these pips is a success. So in this case he only got 2 successes, 1 asterisk or pip there and 1 there. But he does have an L in his special on his player board, and that's one of the possible options. An I or an L. He has an L, so he can re-roll any number of dice. So maybe he decides to re-roll 2, and he still didn't succeed. He only got 3 pips instead of 4. So he would fail at this, so he would get read the fail text instead of the succeed. But whenever you see that kind of iconography on an encounter card, that means it's a test. That's the number you have to get to succeed, and those are the letters that allow you to re-roll if you have them in your special on your player board. So let's talk a little bit more about the shop. Remember I showed where if you got a result that said you could shop, you shop from the assets available. Now when you get a result that says you can shop, you actually first you add 1 card to the available items, draw 1 card from the top, and then these are the available items you have to buy. If it's a companion like this, you have to, before you could buy that, you'd have to meet the requirement of having a C in your special board. If you don't, then you could not get this companion. And this companion shows that you have to be vilified. You remember that's a trait that the ghoul starts out with. So if you're not vilified, you can't acquire this companion. But if you are, you could just acquire it. There's no cost to it. And if you have the C in your special, you could acquire this companion. There's no cost to it. But this, like if you wanted the sniper rifle, it costs 10 caps. If you want this, you just have to have the letter I in your special. If you wanted this, it would cost you 6 caps. Now when you, remember I said you can buy or sell, so if you already had an item, maybe you'd bought this earlier and you now wanted to sell it, when you sell, you get 1 less than its value. So instead of getting 10 caps, when you sold it, you would get 9 caps. But anyway, you get number of buy or sell actions equal to, depending on, like I said, if it just has the icon there, then it's the level of whatever city. Like if you took this encounter action and got this card and shop here, you could take 4 buy or sell actions. So buy 2, sell 2, buy 4, sell 1, buy 3, anyway, 4 actions. Then once you've finished your buying or selling, if the number of available items is more than 4, like in this case, you would discard the rightmost one to the discard pile. If you had bought maybe several items and there was only 3 items left, you would draw 1. So always when you're done buying and selling, you either draw, if you need to add cards, you draw to get back to 4 available, or you discard if there's more than 4, because maybe you didn't buy, because you always draw 1 to start with when you're doing a shop action. That would make it 5. If you ended up not buying anything, then you would have to discard the rightmost card into the discard pile. Alright, another action you could do is the fight action. So if you're in the space with this enemy, you could take a fight action and try to fight this enemy. Now he's a level 2, and this shows where he's vulnerable, a body or legs hit. So whenever you take a fight action, you roll the 3 VATS dice, and in this case I got a head hit, a body hit, and a leg hit. Well, head hit doesn't matter to him, but he does take body and leg hits. Now this is his level, which is the number of hits he requires to defeat him. So I did get 1 body and 1 leg hit, so I would defeat him. But before you do the damage to the enemy, they do damage to you. So you look at the number of asterisks or pips that are on the dice that you rolled, and for each one of those is a hit you took, and you take a number of damage equal to the creature's level for each pip. So I take 2 hits. He's level 2, so that's 2 points for each hit. So that's a total of 4 damage I would take. So this is the super mutant, so he would move his hits down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So his health would go down. But now, because I did get the required hits to kill him, he would be killed. But you look here, that loot bag means you would get to draw 1 loot card for having defeated him. Plus, you would get 2 experience. Now, when you get experience, you start with your experience marker over here in the leftmost at the beginning of the game. For each experience point you get, you move to the next letter that you have in your special. So in this case, he got 2 experience, so he would go 1, then he'd move to the next letter he has, which is 2. Now, he doesn't have any other letters in here, so if he ended up killing another creature that, let's say, like if he ends up the next time and if he killed this monster, he would, because he has no more here, his marker would come back here, and that would mean he would gain 1 level. And then he would still have 1 point left, so he would go here. So again, the first time he got points because he killed this creature. He got 2 experience points. You don't move it in each hole, you move it in each hole that you have a letter. Then again later he killed this creature, so since he's got no more here, he starts over back at the beginning. That means he leveled up, but he still had 1 extra point, so his thing would go here. Alright, so he leveled up 1 level. So when you level up, you draw 2 special tokens, look at them, choose 1 to keep, and so if you wanted to, he already has this S, so he may not want to keep that one. He may want to keep the C and put it in his thing. But you choose 1 to keep. If you decided to keep the S, you reveal it, and if it's a letter you already have, obviously you can't put it into your player board, so instead you choose a perk card that matches that letter. Now that was an S, so you'd have to choose a perk card like this one that matches your letter. So he could choose this one because it's an S. And this one gives you the armor. You discard at a settlement to gain an apparel item from the shop or from any discard pile. So anyway, these perks give you special one-time off kind of things. So again, when you level up, you draw 2 special tokens. You choose 1 to keep. If it's 1 that you don't already have, then you add it into your board, which the benefit of that is because when you have weapons or armor, or you're doing tests that give you re-rolls, if you have that letter, that gives you more possible re-rolls. Or if you chose 1 that you already have, then you can discard it and take a perk card that matches that letter. Now let's talk about combat if you have a weapon. So when you have a weapon, it goes in this slot, this hand slot of your thing. And again, this one has 3 letters, IAL. So when you do combat with a creature, with an enemy, if you have one of those letters, I, A, or L, after you do your roll, for each one of those letters that you have in your board, you could do a re-roll. Now, in this case, if this player had it, he wouldn't be able to do any re-rolls because he doesn't have those letters. So that's, why when you level up, you want to try to get more letters in here so you can get more possible re-rolls when you're doing combat or taking a test. This one also has the ranged icon, so we haven't talked about that yet, but if you don't have the ranged icon, you have to be in the space of the enemy you're fighting. But if you do have the ranged icon, now, well, this guy has range, so let's show the one that doesn't. If you had this weapon and you were fighting this enemy, because it has the ranged icon, you can fight the enemy from an adjacent space. And since he doesn't have the ranged icon, you get to inflict 1 additional hit. No matter what you roll, you get one hit automatically because you're ranged. Now, if you were fighting this guy, because he also has the ranged icon, then you don't get the additional hit. And similarly, when an enemy is attacking you, when they activate, which we haven't gotten to yet, but if the enemy is attacking you and if he has the ranged icon, he can attack you from an adjacent space. And if you don't have a weapon with the ranged icon, then he automatically inflicts 1 additional hit on you. If you do have a weapon with the ranged icon, then nobody gets to inflict an additional hit. Let's talk about, probably should have talked about this when I was talking about the shop, but on your player board you can have 1 apparel item, 1 weapon, and 1 companion. Then in your inventory you can have up to 3 other items. If you have a weapon or an apparel or a companion in your inventory and not equipped, then you can't use that. You couldn't use a weapon that you don't have equipped, or you couldn't use apparel that you don't have equipped. Now, for instance, this apparel, you'll see that it automatically blocks 1 hit against you when you're fighting, and during a test that uses the letter C, you add 1 hit. So if you were doing a fight or something and you had a weapon that allowed you to use the letter C, or if you're doing a test that allows you to use the letter C, you get to add 1 hit. Again, companions, they have different options, but this one, during a test that uses P or A or L, exhaust to add 1 hit or 1 success. So when you exhaust something, you turn it 90 degrees, and then you can't use it again until it's unexhausted, which happens in the camp action, which we'll talk about here shortly. But companions are kind of tricky, so like this one, if you have a drug item, which like this one that you do, if you have a drug item, keep this companion when it unexhausts. But otherwise, if you didn't have a drug item when you unexhaust it, then you just have to discard this companion. If you ever have already have 3 items and you buy something, you get a new loot or you buy a new item, you have to discard down to only 3 items. 3 items in your inventory. Companions, weapons, and apparel that you have equipped do not count against your inventory, but you can only ever have up to 3 things, items, whatever, in your inventory, things that are not equipped. If you are ever in a fight or some circumstance causes you to take damage where your damage marker would go meet or go below where your RADS marker is, then you're killed. whenever you're killed, you move your, like if the ghoul was killed here by some enemy, when you're killed, you move back to a space on the starting tile. You move your HP back to its maximum. You do not reset your rads, so they stay where they're at. And you discard all cards that are in your inventory. You get to keep any cards you have equipped, but any cards that are in your inventory get discarded. If your rads ever get up to the highest hole and you take any damage, then you're just permanently killed because there's no way you can reset. So you're just you lose and you're eliminated from the game. Some enemies have an icon like this. Now remember the little loot bag, I said that means you draw loot if you kill it. But if they have this little shield icon, then that means they take one additional hit to kill. So even though he's level 2, he would actually take 3 hits to kill because he's got that shield icon. And this little icon here means that this enemy is aggressive. So if you ever move into its space, it's automatically going to attack you. You don't have to take a fight action to attack it. It will automatically attack you because it's got that aggressive icon. One other thing about the fight, again, you take damage from the hits done to you before you apply damage to the enemy. So if you get killed from the damage you take, then you don't, that just ends the combat. You don't apply any damage to the enemy. So even if you had enough hits to kill it, it would not be killed. And another thing about combat, it's just one round. So you roll your dice once. If you have some abilities from a weapon or something that allow you to re-roll, you can do that. But after that, those are the results. So if both you and the enemy survive, that's just it. Combat is over. The combat doesn't continue until one person is killed. It's just one round. So hopefully you eliminate the enemy in that one round of combat, but if not, and you're not eliminated, both you and the enemy just stay where you were. Alright, the final action you can take is the camp action. So you can camp in any space where there's not an enemy, which I didn't mention this, but you can't do an encounter action or a quest action if there's an enemy in that space. So you can only do those actions if the space that you're doing the encounter or the quest in are free of an enemy. And so similarly with the camp action, you can only do that. You can do that in any space as long as it's free of an enemy. So the first thing when you do a camp action is you get to recover 3 HP. So 1, 2, 3, you'd move your peg back up. You would unexhaust any exhausted cards. You have to unexhaust them, so even if it's a companion that you're going to lose, if you unexhaust it, you have to do it. So you unexhaust any exhausted cards. You gain the well-rested trait, and what that's good for is anytime you're doing a test or a fight, you can discard your well-rested trait to re-roll any number of dice one time. And finally, if there is another survivor within one space of you, when you do the camp action, you can trade with them. You can trade assets or loot or caps or influence. I keep saying influence, but agenda cards. So you can trade with the survivor those type of items. You both have to agree to the trade. But I think that about covers all the possible actions. So again, in a round, starting with the first player, he'll take his 2 actions, then the next player will take their 2 actions, and the next player will take their 2 actions. Once everybody is finished taking their actions, you go to the end of the round, which you draw and one agenda card from the agenda deck, it's going to just go into the discard pile. But any icons that are shown down here, you activate those enemies starting with the leftmost icon and moving to the right. So in this case, you'd activate any star icons. Remember, star is the railroad. There's none on the board right now, but if there was one, you would activate it and it would count as this type of enemy. And then if you had any of the monsters on the board, you would activate them. If an enemy type is not on the bottom of the card, then it doesn't activate that round. Since we're about to talk about enemy activation, before I do that, I probably should have mentioned when I was talking about the fight, if you defeat an enemy, you discard its token into your discard pile. Now, I think the rules state, you kind of have these mixed up and just draw a new one. You can do it that way. I think that's the way it actually is supposed to be done. I just keep them in a stack and draw the next one from this. I put the dead one in the bottom and draw the next one from the top, but I don't think that's the official way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to keep them mixed up and just draw a random one, including the one you just discarded. But you draw a new one, and then it goes face down on the icon nearest matching it from where you killed it. So, I killed a robot here, then the nearest matching icon from where I killed it is here, so it would go face down, and it would be inactive at this time. So no one could move in there and attack it, or it wouldn't attack anybody because it's face down, it's inactive. I found a card that will work as a better example for activating enemies for us in this situation. So again, at the end of the round, after every player has taken their turn, you draw a card, activate all the enemies starting from the left going to the right. So you would activate any face-up humans, and when an enemy activates, all the face-up enemies of that type will move one space towards the nearest survivor. So in this case, this guy's 2 spaces away, so he would move one space toward him. They ignore terrain, so even if it's a difficult or irradiated space, it doesn't matter to the enemy. He would just move one space towards him. Now, there would be no combat. Even though this guy's ranged, there wouldn't be a combat because he used his activation to move. Now, in a future end of round, if this enemy activated, since he is a ranged enemy, he would, instead of moving, he would combat, start a fight with this survivor, and that works just like if the survivor started a fight with him. If an enemy type is going to activate and it's moving one space towards the nearest survivor, and their survivors are equal, like this one is 2 spaces away from him and this space is 2 spaces away from him, well, in this case it wouldn't matter. He would just move here. But if there's let me just set a better example. If he's going to move one space towards the nearest survivor and they're at equal distance, then he would go after the survivor that has the lowest HP. And in this case, if he was here. Anyway, if the survivors are equal distance from the enemy, he would move one space toward or attack the one that has the lowest HP. So you would move all the humans. Then if there were any humans flipped down, face down on the board, you would then flip them face up. But they would not move or fight anybody. So you would activate all the face up ones first, and then any that are flipped down, you would flip them face up. Then you would move on to the next one, like the super mutants here. Now here, he would move one space towards the nearest survivor, but the tiles are flipped down. Well, the enemy doesn't care about that. He would just move onto the face down tile, and each tile would count as one space. Now, if a survivor ever explores a tile that has that's face down but has an enemy on it, when they flip it face up, they decide which space to put that enemy on. So he might put it way over here. But again, when an enemy activates, if it is moving toward the nearest survivor, one space toward the nearest survivor, it will just move onto a face down tile, and that only counts as one space for it. And then finally, in this situation, we'd activate robots. The only robot on the board is inactive, so it would just flip face up and it would be active for the next round. So that's the enemy activation step. Then you would just start over with the first player, taking his turn again. And if, when an enemy activates, he's in the same space with you, instead of moving, he will just fight you. If it's an enemy that has a ranged, when he activates, instead of moving, he would just fight you. If an enemy has the aggressive icon and he activates and moves into the same space as you, then he would fight you also. However, if an enemy doesn't have an aggressive icon and it activates and it moves into the same space with you, then it doesn't automatically start a fight with you at that point. Now, the next round, if you were in the space with that and it activates, since it's already in the same space with you, then it would start a fight with you. And I think I already mentioned, if an enemy that's one space away from you that has a ranged activates, then it would just attack you at that point from ranged. It wouldn't move. At the end of a round, when you draw the last, like if you had all the agenda cards, at the end of a round where you draw the last agenda card for your enemy activation, after you activate the enemies, then you shuffle up the agenda deck and move that to the next player to the right, and they become the new first player, and the new rounds will start with them. Also, after you've shuffled the agenda discards and passed it to the player on the right, then both factions will move their power icons down one on the scenario track or power track. So that covers how the game works. So again, I mentioned earlier, you win depending on a number of influence that you get from your agenda cards. In a 3-player game, 9 influence will win the game. So for each agenda card, it's worth 1 influence, and then, for instance, this card, it's worth 1 additional influence for each space the shield is advanced farther than the star. So in this case, it would be worth 1 additional influence. So this card would be worth 2 influence at this point. You can ever, at most, have 4 agenda cards. If you ever would get more than a 4th one, you have to discard 1. Let's look at this one. See, so it's worth 1 influence, and then it's worth 1 additional influence if you have exactly 6 special tokens, and it's worth 2 additional influence if you have all 7 special tokens. So these agenda cards could have different things that make them worth more influence. Again, they're worth 1 always, and then they can be worth more depending on what they say here. And you get more agenda cards by completing quests. Now, we don't have one out here that shows that, but let me find a card that may be put out here, and if you complete it, you'll see that it shows you get an influence or an agenda card. Yeah, for instance, card number 1 here, if you do this 3rd action here, then the result is you get 1 agenda card and then trash this card. So a lot of these cards that come out and get staged will have quests, and if you complete them, you get agenda cards. And again, the agenda cards give you influence, and a total of 9 influence. First player to get that immediately wins. Now, the other way the game can end is if one of the factions gets their power icon down to the last space on the scenario sheet, then that faction has gained enough power where they will win the game. Now, if that scenario marker moving down to that space gives one of the survivors enough influence, if they had one like this for each space that the shield is advanced further than the star, if that token moving down that space gives a survivor enough influence at that point where they won, then they would still win. But otherwise, if no survivor has enough influence when one of the faction tokens gets to the bottom of the scenario or power track there, then that faction wins the game and all the survivors lose. There's one other thing we haven't talked about. You can see on this agenda card, it says at the start of your turn you may reveal this card to declare loyalty to, in this case it's the Institute, whoever's the shield. So at the beginning of your turn you can reveal one of your agenda cards and declare loyalty to one of the factions, and all that does basically is that if one of those faction markers is out on the board, it won't take you into account, like when enemies move. If one of the activation is shields, if you're loyal to them, then they won't move towards you or attack you. So it just kind of means you're loyal to that faction, and you're they won't attack you or move toward you. But you can, at any point on your turn, you can take that card away, and then you're no longer loyal to them. So even if you have the card, if you have it face down, then even because you have that card, you're not loyal. You actually have to, at the beginning of your turn, declare your loyalty to that faction for it to be active, where they'll ignore you and not fight you. And also, of course, if you've declared loyalty to a faction, you can't attack them either. But again, at the beginning of your next turn, you could put a card up there declaring loyalty to the other faction, or you could just remove that card and put it back and not be loyal to anyone. So again, that's what declaring loyalty to a faction does. I think the only other thing we haven't talked about too much is the traits. I mean, I did talk about the well-rested. If you get well-rested, you can discard that to get a reroll in a fight or a test. The other traits, like vilified or idolized or super mutant, those come into effect from cards, either encounter cards or quest cards or something, and there may be a choice that you can't take, or maybe like a companion will go to this to only a vilified person. So there may be quests or things that you're forced. There's some that they'll say forced. If you're super mutant, your choice is forced. You have to choose that option on the quest card, and if you don't have that trait, you can't choose that option on the quest card. So those traits mostly come into play with encounter cards or quest cards or something, or companions, where a certain companion won't stay with you if you're vilified or something like that. So again, those come into play, and they stayed on the card. Here's one as an example, an encounter card. If you have the idolized trait, then you're forced to choose option 1. You can't choose option 2 or option 3. And the other thing about trait, if you're vilified and you get something that says become idolized, you don't also take an idolized token. You just flip over your vilified over to idolized. Now, if you have one like the super mutant has one where it's got this icon, that means it's locked. So he can't flip that over to the other side. he has to keep it. Now, there's some that may have a lock icon that says lose that trait. That's the only way you can lose one that's locked. But if you have one that's locked and it just says, for instance, if you have the addicted trait, it's locked. You can't gain the well-rested trait. So even if you camp, you can't gain the well-rested if you have the addicted trait. You can't flip it over to the well-rested. The only way you can lose the addicted is if you take some game effect or some item that says you lose the addicted trait. Then you lose it. And then in the future you could get the well-rested trait when you camp. Alright, I think I've covered most of the basics there. So let me get everything set back up to how it was at the beginning of the game, and we'll do a few example turns. Alright, I think everything is set back up to how it was right after setup. The first player is the ghoul. He is right here. So for his first action, he's going to explore. So he's going to flip this tile and himself. No, he's just supposed to flip the tile. Put it arrow side up. Let me kind of fix my map back up. Alright, and then he still has another action he can take. So he's going to move 2. So 1, 2. And actually when we flipped that face up, we should have put an enemy there. So maybe he doesn't want to move in there and fight that guy. Well, he might. He's aggressive, so he will fight him if he moves in there. So I guess we might as well do that. 1, 2. Alright, this guy's going to fight him because he's got the aggressive lightning bolt icon. Alright, I don't have any weapons or any armor or anything like that. He takes hits on legs and body, and he's level 2. So I roll my VATS dice. I got 1 body and 2 head hits. So I don't kill it. First it does 2 hits to me. He's level 2, so that's 2 damage each. So 4 hits to me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I only got 1 hit on it, 1 body hit. So it's because it's level 2, it takes 2 hits. So I don't kill it, and that ends the combat. Okay, it's the Vault Dweller's turn. So for his action, we'll say he's going to do an explore action. And he's going to explore here. And then we got to put an enemy here. And then he's going to move in here. He's just going to use 1 movement point because he wants to stay here to do an encounter on his next action. So he's done. Alright, next it's the Super Mutant's turn. So he's going to use a move action. He's going to move 1, 2. Now he moves into an irradiated spot, so he suffers a rad. Now his XP should be here, but he has this thing that says for each rad you suffer, gain 1 XP. So he actually does move his XP to here. Alright, so he moved. That's going to be 1 action. For his next action, we'll say he's going to move in here. Now, this enemy is not aggressive, so it doesn't automatically start a fight. And he has used all his actions, so he can't start a fight. Anyway, that's the end of the round. So now, end of round, we draw an agenda card, and we activate any stars. There aren't any stars in the map, and we activate any monsters. There aren't any monsters on the map. So we just start a new round with the first player. Alright, so we're back to the ghoul. He's going to go ahead and try to fight this Raider Psycho again and see if he can defeat him. Wishes he had a weapon, but he doesn't. So he rolls. Alright, he got enough hits to kill him, but I don't know. He took a lot of damage. Unfortunately, he can't re-roll anything. So he took 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 damage. He's only got 8, so that's going to kill him. So his hit points go back to the maximum. He goes back here. He doesn't discard any. He doesn't have any cards to discard. So pretty much that's all that happens is he goes back to the starting tile and his health goes back to there. So not too much damage at the beginning of the game. But that ends his turn. So we go on to the next player, which is the Vault Dweller. He's going to do an encounter action. So he's here at the Red Rock Station in the Wasteland encounter. So the player to his right would draw this encounter card and read it. Your encounter arrested and damaged Mr. Handy Robot. Whoa, man, far out, it says. It seems to be wandering aimlessly. There aren't any people around. So then you would read to the player, leave the robot and loot the building, or reprogram the robot and do a test 4 of IL. And you don't tell him what the possible outcomes are. Well, he's got an L, so he said, I'm going to try to reprogram the robot. So you do a test. Alright, he got a 3. He gets to re-roll once because that's, L is one of the possible re-roll things. So he decides he's going to re-roll 2, and there we go. He got 2, 3, 4. So he's successful, so you read him the success, which says success. Defense protocol sounds useful. The robot loses its calm demeanor and says identified target. Choose and kill one enemy within 2 spaces. Well, I'll choose and kill this one. So, well, that's the only one within 2 spaces. So I'll kill that one. It's a level 1, so I'll just get 1 experience. Put that at the bottom of the pile. I'm putting a new one face down in the nearest icon that matches it, which is that one. I do get 1 experience, so I move my thing to the P, and then where was I at? Choose and kill 1 enemy within 2 spaces. That's it. So, alright, it doesn't say trash it, so it just goes back into the bottom of the deck. And actually, because I killed a human, I've completed this, so I get to draw 2 loot cards. See what we got. A drug during a test or fight. Uses P or A exhaust to add a hit. And I got a companion, which I can just add to my companions there. Exhaust to ignore the effects of difficult terrain until the end of your turn. Alright, then I got a stage cards 15 and 134. Alright, so I've got those out, and you would probably read that text out loud, or all the players could look at them and see what the possibilities are. And then trash, so then this card just gets, put out of the game. Alright, really, so that was his first action, that he did that wasteland encounter and killed all that, and all that happened. So he still has another action, so he is going to move 1 here, which is going to give him a rad. And then he can't explore, so he could move here or stop. I guess he'll move here. Well, yeah. Alright, so that's going to be the end of his turn. Alright, Super Mutant's turn. He's on this space right here, so he's going to explore with his 1 action. And then he will move in here, 1, and he'll stop because maybe he wants to do an encounter there. Alright, so that's going to be the end of the round. Draw a card, activate humans. So this one is on. He will move toward the nearest human, which is him, and because he's aggressive, that will start a fight. So he's fighting the Vault Dweller. So he's got to roll. Alright, so he's going to roll his dice. He got a body, a head, and unfortunately he needed a body or leg, another body or leg. So he's got to take 2 hits at 2 damage apiece. So he's going to take 4 damage. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he does not have enough damage to kill that, so it's still alive. So that's the end of that fight. So that was that human activation. This one will now just flip face up, but it won't do anything this round. Now we activate super mutants. We have one here. He'll move 1 space towards the nearest. And then we activate robots, which is here. And he will move 1 space toward the nearest, which is in... Oh, well, no, he's ranged, so he will just fight this guy because he's 1 space away. Alright, so the super mutant's got to fight him. He takes arm hits, so we just got 1, unfortunately. But he did do 1, 2, 3 damage at 2 apiece to the super mutant, so 6 damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course the super mutant only got 1 hit on him, so he's still alive. And that's the end of our activation, so now we start the round again. So we'll do one more round. Well, actually I'm going to play ahead a little bit so I can get to where I can show a shop action or something. So I'll play ahead a little bit and then come back. Alright, I moved ahead a little bit. The ghoul has moved here into the Hoffman Farm settlement. And his one action was to move in there. For his second action, he's going to do an encounter there. I don't know if I mentioned in my rules overview, but you can only do, even if you had 2 actions, you started your turn in an encounter space, you can only do 1 encounter in the 1 space per turn. So you couldn't do 2 encounters in a row on your turn in the same space. Anyway, he's going to do an encounter, so the person to his right would draw this card and read it, which says, you pass several people in the settlement. When you hear an angry voice, you stupid mutt, you look over to see a woman kicking her dog. Forced if you're idolized, which I'm not. So then the person would read to me, you can make this asshole stop and do a test of 4 with SC, or let it go and go shopping. So I would say I'm going to let it go and go shopping. So he says, you can hear the woman still cursing at the poor animal. You walked away. So I get to shop, and it's got a level 2, so I get to shop 2. So I would get to go to the shop. Remember, you draw 1, and then I get to choose. Now, this companion will come with me because I'm vilified. So I'm going to take this companion. And then, so that's one of my shop actions. I got to shop 2, so I can do 1 more action. I don't have an eye, so I can't take that. And I don't have enough money to buy one of these, or enough caps. So that's pretty much all I can do. Now there's 4 items in the shop, so I don't have to discard or add anything. So that's the end of my shop action, or the end of my encounter action. And then, since this did not say trash down here, it just goes to the bottom of the encounter deck. Alright, well, this video's gone pretty long, but I think you can see how it plays. If if somebody wanted to do this quest, they'd have to get to the CIT ruins, which are right here, and used a quest action, do a test. They'd have to get 4 successes, and they could re-roll with if they have E or I. Then they would get this, or they could go to Diamond City and use a quest action, but they'd have to spend 4 caps to complete that, and then they would get these results. There's also this quest available. Oh, I was supposed to add card 135 when I revealed this. So let's show that because we didn't do that. When I revealed this, should have read this text and add 135. So I got card 135 from the card library. It's this kind of encounter. So since there's 3 players, I would add 3 cards from the top of this encounter deck, shuffle these up. Alright, I just shuffled them, and then they go back on top of that encounter deck. So that card 135 is one of the top 4 cards in there now. But anyway, you could go to any settlement and use a quest action to try to test 3 and get these results, which would give you an agenda card. Or you could go have an encounter at any wasteland. I'm sure to find Olivia's sister, if you read that, it says something about Olivia. Then you would stage a new card, get an agenda card, and trash this card. So anyway, I think you can see how the game plays. What do I think of it? This is one of those Fantasy Flight games that comes with a learn to play booklet, and somewhere a rules reference. So you read the learn to play, but you also got the rules reference. There's at least a couple of spots in here where the learn to play contradicts the rules reference. I think the rules are a mess, really, and hard to follow, and things are very vague. I tried to look on the Board Game Geek forums when I wasn't sure about something, and there didn't seem to be any consensus on some of those things. One group of people would say it works this way. One group would say it works that way. And I looked for an official fact from Fantasy Flight, but there wasn't one. So I'd say the rules are a mess. I tried to interpret them as best I could from reading the rules reference and the learn to play. I'm not a big fan of the combat. The rest of it is okay. I kind of do like the quest system of staging cards and reading these, the flavor text and going and doing these quests and having these encounters. I kind of like that. I kind of wish the enemies were not just tokens. Maybe they could have made miniatures for that. I'm not sure. Playing it solo as multiplayer, I didn't love it. That's probably why I haven't played it since I played it in 2018. But like I said, I am playing it with other players first weekend in March, so we'll see how I like it after that. But as it stands right now, definitely not one of my favorites. But we'll see. Anyway, this video is long. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.